Hi, everyone. This week I thought I would provide your feedback via video for last week's discussion board rather than provide feedback in a little tiny text box. Sometimes those text boxes just aren't enough room for me to give all the feedback that I want. So let's go ahead and look at Chapter 4 discussion board. Chapter 4 talks about learning and transfer of training. So it's important to not only train the information, but how do we get that information transferred onto our trainees? How do we get them to hold on to that information? And so this chapter talks about that. You were to select a job, preferably one you were familiar with, and then select some sort of training for that job. Once you have that in mind, you are to then answer the following questions. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first question. What is the trainee going to learn? So hopefully you were able to identify exactly what it was that you were going to train, whether it's new hire orientation, perhaps it's a new software system, safety, whatever it happens to be. I'm hopeful that you were able to identify that. So that's part of that question. In addition to just identifying what the trainee is going to learn, I wanted you to be specific about the types of learning that will take place. And this is found on page 162. I tried my best to provide you information so that you can easily look up the answers and spend the time applying what you've learned versus looking for answers. Because I know as a student myself many years ago, I would spend a lot of time trying to find the answers. And then if I spent too much time trying to find the answers, and then my motivation kind of died out, and then I would just answer something rather quickly. What I'd rather do is go ahead and give you the page that it's located on, and then have you apply the information, spend your time wisely, and applying the information than trying to look up information in the book. I hope that made sense. But at any rate, you were to go ahead and discuss the types of things that were learned. Was it verbal information? Was it intellectual skills, motor skills, or attitudes? So as long as you talked about either verbal, intellectual, motor, or attitudes in your answer for question one, you will get full credit. Question number two, which of the learning theories did you find most relevant and why? So again, this chapter is about transfer of training. And so what would transfer of training be without different theories? Now, the great thing about theories, whether it's learning theory or management theory or motivation theory, I teach all of those. There are no right or wrong answers because at the end of the day, it is just theory. So there are no right or wrong answers, but there is a well-supported one. So let's go ahead and take a look at these different theories. We have reinforcement theory, social learning theory. There is goal theory, needs theory, adult learning theory, and expectancy theory. Oh, and the last one, information processing theory. That's a lot of information to process. Okay, bad joke, I know. It's late at night, but thank you for hanging in there. So as long as you were able to identify one of those theories that you felt was most relevant and then explained why, you will get full credit. Now, one of the areas that a lot of students miss out on is they don't give a good explanation as to why. They'll tell me about the learning theory, and they might even write, a couple pages of learning theory. But if they don't tell me why they felt it was the most relevant, then it defeats the purpose. So please make sure that you tell me why. The last question was describe what you see necessary for the learning cycle. So the learning cycle takes place on page 176, and there are 4 stages in the learning cycle. So you have concrete experience, reflective observation, abstract conceptualization, and then active experimentation. So that's a mouthful for anyone, but really what I wanted you to do here is talk a little bit about the learning cycle and then what's needed for this learning cycle to take place. What's being taught? What are the learning outcomes, for instance? Now, additionally, I was hoping that you also discussed the implications, things that are needed for this cycle to take place, which are you need objectives. Employees, students, they need to know the objectives, the reason why they're learning something, what they're learning, right? They have to have meaningful content. There's opportunities to practice, feedback, observation. There's a whole list of different things that are needed for the cycle to take place. And I'm hopeful that you were able to discuss those in depth. And that was found on page 177 to 193. Again, it's not so much that you are able to, define these terms, but talk about why you need them and why they're important. All right, as long as you were able to do that, you will get full credit for this assignment. If for some reason you only answered half the question, then chances are you're going to get half credit for that question. There are 3 questions. The initial post is worth 25 points, and then each response to another student is worth 12 and a half points. So if you have your initial post, but you did not respond to other students, you're only going to get 25 out of 50 points. If you have your initial post and then you only respond to one other student, you'll get 37 and a half points. And making sure that when you do respond, that you use critical thinking and you engage each other in learning and collaboration. Simply stating, I agree, is not going to quite cut it. So really what we're looking for is about 100 words per each question, and then maybe about 50 words in your response, kind of demonstrating why you agree with what they said, or maybe why you don't agree. All right. Thank you so much and have a great rest of the week.